if there is anybody who has arrived, and particularly for the areas that have been declared by our minister as a hotspot, we want to know.
In the meantime, Coast Regional Commissioner John Elungata cautioned Old Town residents in the coastal city of Mombasa against floating lockdown restrictions. Elungata rallied the locals to observe restriction of movement order that was imposed in the area to curb the spread of the virus.
Leo ni siku ya pili, tumefanikiwa kufanya nini? Ili ikifika 15 days, tusiongezewe. It is upon us kuhakikisha kwamba within 15 days janga limetutoka, siku hizo zisiongezwe.
In Taita Taveta, County Governor Granton Samboja has named community policing and Nyumba Kumi as an alternative to resolve cases of neighboring Tanzanians getting into the country using illegal routes. Samboja noting that efforts to improve passenger inspections, including truck drivers at the border, will not bear fruits if strategies are not put in place to combat negative attitude that undermine the nation's effort to control the spread of the coronavirus.
Community policing ifanye kazi ili tujikinge zaidi. Ikiwa kuna mtu yote mwenye mnaona anatumia panya route, ikiwa kuna mtu yote mnamshuku kwamba huyu ni mgeni, maafisa wetu wote wako on alert.
And Saku Member of Parliament Dido Raso distributed food to needy families in Marsabit County who are grappling with effects of COVID-19 pandemic. The lawmaker called on the national government to increase funds meant to cushion Kenyans from adverse effects of COVID-19 disease. He said the number of people in need during this period of crisis is increasing, even as he noted that the current funds allocated to the counties remain insufficient.
Nimeona ya kweli iko needy cases ambaye mimi nauliza serikali yetu, tafadhali hiyo chakula tuongezewe. Sababu wale walikuwa wanapata hii msaada pengine walikuwa wachache. Sasa wengi wanahitaji hiyo msaada.
Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka has in the meantime sustained his campaign to mobilize relief supplies to underprivileged Kenyans amid COVID-19 pandemic. Kalonzo lauded a number of frontline officers who have been easily accessible to offer the much needed help to Kenyans as the war against the invisible COVID-19 continues.
Being an assistant chief, you would have expected her to be seen all over a sub-location, carrying that stick and pointing it at people and telling them, thou shalt keep social distance, thou shalt wash your hands. But she chose to lead by example. When I saw her on a Singer sewing machine, actually sewing the mask, and I think she's wearing it, and you can see it's very good quality mask.
Beatrice Getonyingetich, Channel 1 News.
Meanwhile, the government, through the COVID-19 Emergency Fund, has kicked off distribution of food items in an exercise targeting vulnerable communities as it seeks to cushion them from the adverse effects of the coronavirus pandemic. Speaking as he handed over food supplies worth 300 million shillings for use by residents of the city's Mukuru kwa Njenga slums, Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i said the initiative will target 250,000 vulnerable families in its first phase.
As the adverse effects of the coronavirus pandemic continue to bite, the government, through the COVID-19 Emergency Fund, has embarked on an exercise to distribute food to vulnerable families in an effort to cushion them and decelerate the effects of the pandemic. On Saturday, about 50 persons drawn from Mukuru kwa Njenga slums will line up at the Kenyatta Convention Center to receive welfare packages as the government kicked off the exercise.
The President asked me to announce that he will soon launch the new shelter upgrading and environment upgrading program in Mukuru kwa Njenga. This is going to now touch on the livelihoods of the people in Mukuru kwa Njenga. It's a new ambitious program that the government has been looking for resources for, and the President has been championing it himself, and he will launch it himself shortly.
Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i will oversee the launch of the exercise that targets 250,000 vulnerable families.
Stipend that we are giving to cushion vulnerable families that we are giving every week. Now we are giving that stipend to about 250,000 households in low-income areas in Kenya. And we are targeting the urban poor in this process. And it's across the country, from Nyalenda to Bangladesh in Mombasa, Kiandusu, Mukuru, Madare, Kibra, and all these places.
According to COVID-19 Emergency Fund Chair Jane Karuku, the food supplies worth 300 million shillings is intended to aid beneficiaries during these trying times.
We coordinate and we've dispatched over 300 million shillings worth of food. We also have some more in the stores to the tune of 100 tons. And today we also are distributing a lot, starting with Mukoro, kwa Jenga. We are still appealing to Kenyans to give us food in kind, in cash, so we can support each other.
Those attending the event hailed the initiative as timely, even as they called for transparency in the management of the funds.
Hii muende mpeane vizuri kwa upole, pole nyinyi ndio viongozi. Let's help, mufikirie yule mtu. Na kama uko nayo pia kuna mbili, saidia yule jirani yako ambaye hajapata. Think about your neighbor. Hii si wakati ya ulafi. This is not the time for greed. This is the time just to help each other.
Right now, it's important to know your neighbor. So if you're not part of the Nyumba Kumi, get involved, get there, because we follow administrative structures. And the kazi that we're giving for the mtaani, a lot of you need to obviously try. It's a few numbers right now, but we want transparency and honesty.
Wiki tano zilizopita watu ambao wanalipwa kila Ijumaa shilingi 500 kwa siku, so 2,200 kwa siku, unapata hawajapata mishahara.
Well, the government has had to look at different socio-economic ways to cushion vulnerable families, using the Nyumba Kumi initiative to target the right families that need help. Reporting for Channel 1 News, I'm Sarafina Robi.
Now, that report by Sarafina Robi, of course, takes us to a fast breather tonight here in KBC Channel 1 Weekend. But as I mentioned earlier on, remember you can always send us your feedback on the news via social media platforms, on Twitter at KBC Channel 1 and also on Facebook at KBC. Well, more news and updates coming your way after the break. See you shortly.
This weekend on KBC Channel 1.
Nilikunulia saa very expensive watch iko wapi? Unaona? Hawa ndio wengine. Ndio wengine hawa wanapita wakiniharibia jina la.
Mambo kama hayo sasa kuongea nyumbani. Sasa mambo sasa kuongea nyumbani.
Si unyamaze, wewe kunyamaza wewe. Wewe.
Ushawa.
Niwe nani? Mimi nimekuwa nangoja kumuhariri.
Umuoe nani? Umuoe nani? Ushatoka huko Ulaya umekosa watu wa kuoja kunitafuta mimi huku kijijini.
Mama! Mama! Mama!
Welcome back. Now, the COVID-19 global pandemic has adversely affected many families who are now even struggling to make ends meet as the economic status worsens. The harsh reality is particularly worse for families in informal settlements, where many now go without meals, a deplorable state of affairs that has prompted well-wishers to come out and help elevate the suffering of the vulnerable in the society. Now, Safina Cheng brings us the story of Evans Mikhail, who has gone against all odds to feed the needy in his neighborhood.
As the effects of the coronavirus outbreak continue to be felt, many have taken it upon themselves to help alleviate the suffering of the vulnerable in the society. Such is the case for Evans Mikhail, are residents of the city's Kibera slums, who for weeks now has been feeding vulnerable families in his neighborhood during the COVID-19 global pandemic.
Tangu corona ilipoanza nimekuwa na changamoto kama kijana wa Kibra, kwani kunazo tabu nyingi sana ambazo tunapitia hapa, hasa kabisa masuala ya chakula, na leo hii nimeweza kukua na shughuli ya kupeana chakula kwa wale ambao hawajiwezi, hasa kabisa akiwa wale wazee wa miaka 65 kwenda mbele, walemavu na wale ambao hawajiwezi kabisa.
Such a helping hand has offered the much needed relief for many residents who have lost their source of livelihood courtesy of the economic downturn caused by the pandemic and are therefore struggling to make ends meet.
Kama mimi huwa nafulia watu manguo, nipate ama nikose. Saa zingine ukienda kwa mtu anasema utatuletea corona, rudi kwako.
Unga tuna kazi hakuna. Tumekaa kwa mlango. Tunateseka sana na watoto kwa mlango. Watoto wamekaa hapo wanataka chakula.
Hata hii kitu leo mimi nashukuru Mungu kunipatisha nyinyi watoto, kunipatia hata hii unga na naenda kula ugali. Sina chochote cha kunisaidia. Hata sabuni ya kuoka mimi napata kwa shida.
What many do not know, however, is that this is a huge sacrifice for Evans. Like many Kenyans, he had plans before the coronavirus came knocking without notice. He wanted to get married to the love of his life, a plan that has now been shelved. It is then that he roped in his fiancée, deciding to express their love in a unique way by ensuring they feed the needy during these hard times.
Nilikuwa na pesa fulani ambazo nilikuwa nimetenga ya kwamba nilikuwa nataka kwenda introduction ama kujua kwa kina mke yule ambaye nastahili tu tunaoana kwa maana sijaoa, lakini kwa bahati mbaya corona ilikuja na ikaweza kutuzuia, hatukuweza kwenda, na tukakaa chini pamoja tukaweza kuongea kuhusu hayo maneno, na nikamuuliza kwamba kama anaweza kubali kusaidia jamii.
Asked whether he fears this move may affect his relationship or future plans.
Mimi siogopi, kwa maana nasema kwamba kutoa ni moyo, utajiri ni usambe. Na mimi niliamua kwamba heri nisaidie wale ambao hawajiwezi, sababu unajua haujui ya kesho. Pengine leo nitaishi nikisema kwamba nitafanya harusi kesho na hizo hela, na pengine hata hiyo corona pengine nipate mimi na niweze kuangamia.
He says that his gesture may seem like a drop in the ocean, but maintains that any generous giving, no matter how humble, can save a life.
Haimaanishi kwamba kusaidia mtu lazima uwe milionea. Hapana. Kwa mfano kama una shilingi 2,000, wewe unakula chakula cha shilingi 2,000 pengine kila siku. Mbona usijinyime kula cha 500 alafu 1,500 uweze kupata kula baha hajiwezi?
As he challenges the government and other well-wishers to follow suit, Evans believes more needs to be done to ensure that the aid given reaches those who needs it most.
Chakula ambacho kinaingia Kibra kwa hakika hakiendi kwa wale watu ambao wanastahili. Wale ambao wanapokea chakula hicho hawastahili kupokea, kwani ni wale ambao wana uwezo ndio wanapokea chakula.
Vitu kama msaada ikikuja Kibira, sisi kama walemavu watupati. Because unapata mali penye kuna crowd, walemavu hawezi wakafika. Kama ni vita, kama ulikuwa na ulemavu wa macho, unaweza toka umepata ya miguu.
For Channel 1 News, I'm Safin Acheng Oma.
Honestly, quite an uplifting story, and if we're being honest, we actually need more of those as we aim to fight, obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic. Only goes to show that as a Kenyan, as a human, wherever you can, it will be important to help your neighbor. Now, moving on to other matters, whereby a top aide to U.S. Vice President Mike Pence has tested positive for COVID-19 a day after yet another White House staff member was diagnosed with the virus. The development, according to White House, has prompted the Oval Office to begin daily testing of all officials at White House as a precaution to protect President Donald Trump. The U.S. death toll is now over 78,000 and states are beginning to reopen.
A member of United States Vice President Mike Pence's staff has tested positive for the novel coronavirus, briefly delaying his Friday flight to Iowa and prompting some fellow passengers on Air Force 2 to disembark. The staffer who tested positive was later identified as Katie Miller, the Vice President's press secretary. The shocking discovery immediately forcing the White House to deliver a statement to the effect that all staff will undergo daily screening as a precaution to protect President Donald Trump. Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen have said the United Kingdom and the European Union must continue to cooperate in the fight against coronavirus. The pair spoke on Friday to discuss the response to the pandemic. Italy, in the meantime, became the third country in the world to record 30,000 deaths from the coronavirus after reporting 243 new fatalities. Only the United States and Britain have seen more deaths from the virus. And researchers in Hong Kong have found that patients suffering milder illness caused by the new coronavirus recover more quickly if they are treated with a 3-drug antiviral cocktail plus an immune system booster soon after symptoms appear. South Korea, often credited for its swift and rigorous coronavirus response, has seen a new cluster of cases linked to nightclubs in the capital, Seoul. All bars and nightclubs have since been ordered shut. Closer home, Tanzania has received its first shipment of Madagascar's self-proclaimed plant-based cure for coronavirus, despite warnings from the World Health Organization that its efficiency is unproven. There are now over 4 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 globally, 1.3 million recoveries, and about 276,000 people have died. For Channel 1 News, I am Emily K. Badi.
Now, the coronavirus pandemic has presented children with special needs with overwhelming challenges, further complicating their lives. And as the effects of the pandemic continue to take its toll, how do you deal with children with both hearing as well as visual impairments? Well, let's find out.
For children who have both hearing and visual impairment, it's important, one, to find out from the caregiver, how does this child communicate and how do you communicate with the child, especially for those who come to the hospital, because we call the caregivers or the parents are the experts of their children. So because they're the experts of the children, so you have to give the parent the time to speak about how the child is communicated with, so that you as a healthcare worker can make the environment safe and comfortable for the child by being sensitive in the fact that they are both hearing impaired and visually impaired. So let the parent guide you as to how to handle their child, especially if you're taking any blood samples or any nasal swab samples.
Now, a family in Chileni village in Machakos County is seeking justice for their 15-year-old daughter who was allegedly defiled by her paternal father. The father of the girl, who is now 5 months pregnant, is said to have waylaid her as she was carrying out house chores, with efforts to seek justice proving futile.
A family in Kieleni village, Matungulu constituency, Machakos County, is yet to come to terms with the assault of their 15-year-old girl. According to her family, Dorothy Mbithe, not her real name, who is a KCPE candidate, was sexually assaulted by her paternal father in November last year, leaving her pregnant. Dorothy, who is now on her second trimester, recounts the incident, stating that her father came home during the day when her mother was at work and called her to the house. As she carried on with her house chores, her father held a knife against her, threatening to kill her if she defied his orders. The girl, who later escaped, disclosed the issue to her mother.
Akanivutanisha, akanipeleka huko ndani. Na venye alinipeleka akaniambia nilale. Nikakataa, akanishika shingo akaanza kuninyonga. Na venye alininyonga, mimi nikaisha nguvu na mimi sikujua venye nilifanyiwa.
Juu kitambo huyo bwanangu hakuwa na shida na alikuwa anakaa vizuri na watoto wangu. Sasa nashangaa kwa nini amegeuka, akaanza kutaka kulala na mtoto wangu. Sijui ni nini ilikuwa.
The perturbed minor now says she fears her dreams of becoming a teacher have been cut short as she still lives with her alleged assailant.
Babangu ameniharibia maisha sana, mimi sikuwa nimepanga hivyo. Nilikuwa nataka kusaidia familia yetu.
According to Dorothy's mother, her husband denied being involved in the matter but has since reported the incident at Oldonyo Sabuk police station.
Hivi na kuanzia saa hii lazima mzee achukuliwe apelekwe Donyo police station ili aandikishe statement na sheria ifuate mkondo wake.
Meanwhile, Another family in Likoni is in distress, seeking justice for their 13-year-old girl who was allegedly defied by their neighbor. On the night of April 29, 2020, Stella Kemunto from defiled were confirmed.
Sasa kutoka hapo sijui hiyo kesi iko wapi, naambiwa tu narushanwa, faili hatujui iko wapi, faili ichaletwa kutoka kwa OCPD, nikienda hivi faili bado. Sasa naomba tu serikali unisaidie mtoto wangu apate haki yake. Naomba tu mkubwa wa polisi aingililie tu hili jambo kwa sababu unaona pale inaendewa kinyume.
The journey in pursuit of justice has however been a rocky one as she cites constant frustrations from those handling the matter. Additionally, she says the alleged perpetrators who still walk scot-free have been threatening her to abandon the case.
Kwa sababu mtoto wangu ameharibiwa, she is a candidate, sijui anaenda kuandika nini katika mtihani, akili imechanganyikana. Naomba tu serikali tu nisaidie mtoto aweze kupata haki yake. Na vijana wameachiliwa wako nje na wanamtishia kabisa, akisema ukweli watamuua.
Evans Momanyi, a youth leader, says that many young girls are falling prey to predators, especially during this time when schools are closed as a result of the coronavirus pandemic.
They have to be careful to ensure kwamba mzazi asione kana kwamba ameumizwa na inamuumiza yeye mwenyewe kana kwamba hana haki yeye kama binadamu.
Reporting for Channel 1 News, I'm Jackie Wambiru.
Two quite disturbing reports there, and it is our sincere hope that, of course, the families of those girls are going to get the justice that they deserve. And on that note, we're going to be taking it another commercial break, but don't go too far. We'll be back shortly.
Who choose to read their Bible daily, they become wiser and they become stronger than the people who don't read their Bibles. So when you choose hard, difficult things, you become a natural leader. He brings us to church to introduce to us another higher level of relationship that is called a faith relationship. You are also a solution to somebody else's problem. You cannot be the only problem all the time.
Join Pastor Jimmy Masharia on The Master's Touch this Sunday from 8 a.m. on KBC Channel 1.
On the next episode of Behind Closed Doors.
What in the world do you think you're doing here? Does it bother you to see me? This is my parents' house.
Javier and I discovered that someone was pretending to be Ignacia to make us believe that she was alive.
Pilar is losing her mind, Javier. People go crazy.
So we meet again, Corolla.
We have to check you into a hospital, someplace professional where they can take care of you and where you can get better.
Weekend. Now, police in Machakos County are in the hunt of a middle-aged man who stabbed his 27-year-old pregnant girlfriend to death on Saturday morning before taking off. Residents say the couple had been experiencing marital issues before the unfortunate incident happened.
A dark cloud hung over Mutituni Market in Machakos town Saturday morning after a 27-year-old pregnant woman was stabbed to death by her boyfriend, who is currently on the run.
Halafu tulikuwa tunasema hivi, akipatwa achukuliwa hatua ambao
akalishe chini, aulize alifanya hivi kwa nini, maana yake hakufanya kitu ambayo si nzuri. Ukipatana na mtu mkipendana na uone huyu mtu akupendi, achana yeye, si poa kumuua.
According to their neighbors, the two lovebirds who work together in a hotel at Mtituni Market have been experiencing relationship wrangles, which apparently developed after she fell pregnant.
Kitendo ni mbaya sana. Mimi hata narania hii kitendo juu damu, hata kama umefanywa namna gani, kuua, hiyo kitendo kuua ni mbaya sana. Kuua ni kitendo mbaya sana hiyo.
Hiyo kitendo ilifanyika Mtituni, ilishangaza sana. Wa mwanaume kuua msichana rafiki yake, hata ikiwa wamekosana, wangekaa chini, wanaongea, wanasuluhisha. Kuua mtu na alikuwa mzito, ilikuwa mbaya sana.
The victim's body was transferred to Machakos Level 5 Hospital morgue, with the police launching a manhunt for the attacker.
Wahakikishe ya kwamba wamefanya uchunguzi vilivyo, waone ni kiini ni nini ambacho kilisababisha hiki kitendo, na wachukue ile hatua ambao ya kisheria ambao inafaa, ili iwe funzo kwa wengine.
Cases of domestic violence have been on the rise in the recent days, a state of affairs that has been blamed on the adverse effects of COVID-19 pandemic.
Wakishuhudia kwamba kuna sheria imefuatwa, kijana amepatikana, amepelekwa kotini, utaona hata itakuwa kanyo kwa wale wengine.
For Channel 1 News, I am Emily K. Bade.
And let's have a look at the counties now, whereby special Holy Mass in honor of the late Catholic Bishop Emeritus Silvius Njiru, who died of COVID-19 in Rome, has been held in Embu amid calls for Kenyans to strictly observe guidelines issued by the government to curb the spread of the coronavirus. Embu Catholic Bishop Paul Kariuki, who presided over the Mass, said the ceremony was held to accord close relatives of the late Njiru who could not make it to Italy a chance to eulogize the fallen bishop. Details of this and other highlights in the County News Roundup.
A handful of Catholic faithful congregated to mourn Bishop Emeritus Silas Njiru, who served as Mary's second prelate before moving to Italy, where he died after contracting coronavirus. The Mass was held at Kivote Parish Church, where the late bishop was hailed as a beacon of peace and hope. Embu Catholic Bishop Paul Kariuki, who presided over the event, took the chance to call on the government to consider reopening churches.
Hatukuweza kuenda kule kwa sababu vile tunajua, kwa sababu tunalii janga la coronavirus. Tukaonea ni vema tuungane na watu wa familia wachache tuweze kumwombea ipande ya wavu na kuomba Mungu airase roho yake mahali pema peponi.
And ensure that all guidelines set up to curb the spread of coronavirus. During the special hour-long Mass, relatives and priests who attended wore face masks and observed 1.5 meter distance rule to curb the spread of the novel virus. Meanwhile, West Pokot Governor Professor John Lunyangapo is accusing KANU Secretary General Nick Salat of meddling with the affairs of KANU leadership at West Pokot County Assembly. Lunyangapo is accusing Salat of micromanaging members of County Assembly in what he says is an elaborate plot to destabilize operations of the Assembly.
Hii rebellion yenye wanachambinate na kusungusha kwa kaunti yangu hapa, wenye wanaleta hiyo drama hawachakaa kwa chama cha KANU kwa muda. Kuna wengine wao ni ukiona hata wale leader majority juzi alitoka ODM, ajasoea uvumilivu na namna ya kuweka kwa KANU.
Elsewhere, residents of Wambugu Farm in Nyeri Town constituency are up in arms over the construction of a liquefied petroleum gas plant by a private developer within the area, saying it poses danger to the locals.
Hii kiganda ya gasi inajengwa hapa. Sisi tulistuka sababu watu wengi hapa wamenunua plots, hivi wengine quarter, wengine aneka, na ni plots za kujenga residential house.
The locals say that a similar plant that was put up at a nearby Giakanje Trading Center a few years ago resulted to the death of 2 people, while 5 others sustained serious injuries. In Kilifi County, Governor Amason Kingi has come up to the aid of the family
whose home was recently destroyed by floods. The county chief donated a house to the 9-member family that has been struggling to make ends meet, especially after the birth of quadruplets, given the lack of source of income. And the county government of Garissa has kicked off Ramadan food distribution, targeting 6,000 vulnerable families in the 7 sub-counties in Garissa, Fafi, Balambala, Dadaab and Lagdera. During the launch of the exercise at Bulamzuri in Garissa town, Garissa Deputy Governor Abdi Dagani said the county was honoring the pledge made by Governor Ali Korani that the county government was going to feed some 6,000 vulnerable families during the holy month of Ramadan.
Now, backed by popular demand, the need to enhance social cohesion and trade among nations in the African continent has seen the Kiswahili language increase in popularity and hence its adoption in countries that previously did not recognize it. South Africa is the latest to adopt it as an additional language in schools. And as our reporter Gladys Mungai found out during a trip to Durban, this development has reciprocal benefits between South Africa as well as other countries around the continent.
This is the excitement at Kanyalafo Corner.
Thank you. Asante.
A primary school in Umulanga Township in the north of Durban in South Africa. As pupils geared up for the introduction of Kiswahili in their curriculum in June 2020. This is one of the 90 schools in 9 provinces in South Africa set to pilot Kiswahili in their curriculum. Besides French, Mandarin and German, Kiswahili is the only African language included in the official curriculum. South Africa's Education Minister Mdandeni Lungwana says the initiative will offer employment for Kiswahili teachers from Kenya after a similar arrangement South Africa made with Tanzania.
If the Kenyan government is interested, I'm sure further partnerships can be developed, because even if we're to train our own teachers, we would want to train them tapping into the skills of those countries that where Swahili is dominant. So like in Kenya, I'm sure our government would be interested to see what advantages a partnership with Kenya can bring in addition to that of Tanzania that we have.
Being a Bantu language, Kiswahili will be easier to learn as it shares some syllables with the indigenous South African tribes. For example, the Kiswahili translations for the word plastic, school, radio and a computer are plastiki, skuli, radio and computer, whose spelling are not very far from isiXhosa, isiZulu and other South African native languages.
It will not just end with being a pilot. We'll see many successes and we'll see many advantages, and then start rolling out in the rest of our schools as a language that must be taken by our learners.
Khanya Lafo Ukona Primary School Principal Gasibil Zulu and the Education Minister concur that the initiative will enhance social cohesion and exchange of expertise between South Africa and other African countries where Kiswahili is spoken.
Somebody from South Africa must find it easy to communicate with somebody in Tanzania, in Kenya, and the rest of Africa in our own language, so that we can also trade in our very own languages. So that's what basically motivated this dance to start piloting the introduction of Swahili.
I think it can give us an opportunity, to understand, the culture of our fellow brothers in African countries. That could be a good opportunity for us, because we need to learn from one another.
The initiative is also seen as a remedy to the xenophobic attacks that almost estrange South Africans from the neighbors, as Kiswahili language will help unite Africans beyond the physical boundaries.
Demystify a lot of misconceptions and stereotypes about each other, because unfortunately, because of colonialism, that's what we were indoctrinated with. South Africans will value the German people rather than in Ethiopia.
Apart from Kenya, Tanzania and Zanzibar, Kiswahili is also spoken in parts of Uganda, DRC Congo, Rwanda, Burundi, Malawi, Mozambique and South African nation of Zambia and Zimbabwe.
It's almost you can say an African official language across a number of African countries. That is why it was easy to identify it as the most important language that can make it easy for Africans to communicate amongst themselves, to trade with ease, but to live as Africans.
Already 40% of learners in South Africa are currently learning or speaking Kiswahili, and the ripple effect from including Kiswahili in the formal curriculum will generate benefits that transcend the education sector.
Definitely, I'll have to know and understand the language in order for me to communicate, effectively with the Swahili-speaking people.
People can start, to communicate with each other, and then why not teach our kids now? I think Africa's got a huge potential. We are an extremely rich continent.
It's something that was needed for a long time, just so we can understand each other as African countries, especially Swahili. It's a wonderful language.
Kiswahili will in 5 months become a lesson in South Africa's classroom. And although the idea has received mixed reactions, with some saying that the curriculum is already crowded, proponents behind the idea say Kiswahili will prepare such students with an idea or a feeling to get to understand how to deal with matters of ordinary life as well as trade in the continent. For Channel One News from Durban in South Africa, my name is Gladys Mungai.
Quite a good report from Gladys Mungai. Now we're going to be moving on to matters business, whereby United States employers cut 20.5 million jobs in April, with the unemployment rate soaring to 14.7% as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to ravage the economy. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, unemployment rate in April, which is up by 10.3 percentage points from what was recorded in March, is the highest rate and the highest over the month increase in the history since January 1948. Details of this and other highlights in the Global Business Roundup.
The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics revealed that employment fell sharply in all major industry sectors, with particularly heavy job losses in leisure and hospitality industries. The Bureau saying the changes reflect the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and efforts to contain it. In April, employment in leisure and hospitality plummeted by 7.7 million, or 47% according to the report. Almost three-quarters of the decrease, translating to 5.5 million jobs, occurred in food services. The number of unemployed persons who reported being on temporary layoff surged about tenfold to 18.1 million in April, while the number of permanent jobs increased by 544,000 to 2 million, according to the report. The new unemployment data came a day after the Bureau reported that more than 33 million Americans have filed for jobless claims as the COVID-19 fallout continues to ripple through the country. Meanwhile, UK Airlines say the government intends to introduce a 14-day quarantine requirement for anyone arriving in the UK from any country apart from the Republic of Ireland in response to the coronavirus pandemic. The new restriction is expected to take effect at the end of this month. People arriving in the UK will have to self-isolate at a private residence. Government and aviation sources say that the quarantine would mean people might be expected to provide an address when they arrive at the border. It is not clear how long the new travel restriction will be in place and whether the non-UK residents will be allowed to stay in rented private accommodation. Elsewhere, mobile phone applications that trace the new coronavirus could help decide whether business travelers and vacation goers get to meet clients or visit their favorite beaches this summer. But politics and disagreement over what system to use threatens to thwart that solution. Governments in Europe and elsewhere are turning to voluntary mobile applications to help trace possible infections of the coronavirus, a tool that will help track and contain what they expect to be resurgent outbreaks of the virus once lockdown measures lift and people start to fly internationally.
Coronavirus COVID-19 is a respiratory virus spreading across the world. The infection is spread from droplets of coughing and sneezing of an infected person, touching or shaking hands, or being in contact with contaminated surfaces or objects with the virus. The signs and symptoms are fever, coughing, headache, body ache, difficulty in breathing. The disease can be prevented by regularly washing hands with soap and running water. Avoid close contact with people who have flu-like symptoms. Avoid handshake, hugs, and kissing. Also, protect yourself by covering your mouth or nose using a disposable tissue while coughing or sneezing. If you experience these symptoms and you had traveled or been in contact with a person from a country reporting COVID-19, you should isolate yourself for 14 days. Dial *719# or call 719. This message has been brought to you by the Government of Kenya and its partners.
I found out that my father is in Patliputra.
How did you get to know about
Acharya
it?
Chanakya told me, but he is not telling me who.
They killed your grandfather, and they set your hut on fire.
I've learned how to please the authority in order to use the power in my favor.
Acharya Chanakya cannot hide the truth in front of Emperor Bindusar.
Do you know who my father is?
Yes.
I must tell the truth to His Highness.
Now, let's have a look at sports, whereby a nominated senator representing persons with disabilities, Gertrude Musuruve, has called on the government, as well as other Kenyans, to come to the aid of athletes living with disabilities. Musuruve believes the welfare of persons with disabilities should be given high priority, considering the effects, brought along, the economic effects that have been brought along by the COVID-19 pandemic. With the COVID-19 pandemic having halted life as we know it in various sectors, sports being among the worst hit, sportsmen and sportswomen have also been heavily hit, as most, if not all, competitions were halted back in early March. This has prompted nominated Senator Gertrude Musuruve, representing persons with disabilities, to come to the aid of athletes with disabilities, as most struggle to find alternative means to feed their families.
There is need for the government to this time cushion our Paralympians and ensure that even the money that is going out to athletes, it is also going out to Paralympians. Most of the time, persons with disabilities are left behind, and you'll find that mainstream athletes are the ones who are remembered.
And with learning in schools still suspended due to COVID-19, Musuruve has called on the Ministry of Education to come up with ways of ensuring that children with disabilities are also given the opportunity to keep up with their counterparts.
I also want to send a message to the Ministry of Education to ensure that they come up with mechanisms that will ensure that children with disabilities are also learning. Because as you're speaking, reality on the ground, children with disabilities are not learning, and some of them have developmental issues that needs to be addressed.
In my case of my child who's deaf, most of the time is not studying. So it's just wondering what's going on. Because when you see some children who are being taught through TV, you find that there's no sign language and sign interpreter who can interpret to him so that he can get what is going on the TV.
Kenya National Paralympics Committee Chair Agnes Oloch, on her part, has urged the government and well-wishers to come to the aid of PWDs, as no alternative date has been set for the return of sports competitions, which is their main source of livelihood.
When we go outside there to represent the country and come back with medals, it's unfortunate. Most of us don't get employment. Like the other people able-bodied, maybe they're in the police forces, they're in the armed forces, but for us it's a challenge. We represent and come back and continue in sports.
Paralympic Games have been moved to 2021, and I saw the host saying that they are not sure whether it will be held. That means the athletes and the caregivers have to suffer because they predominantly depend on sports as their source of livelihood.
With the government having promised financial backing for all sportsmen and women in the country in the wake of effects caused by the coronavirus, they hope that the money set aside for PWDs will be enough to help them during this period. Also, the United States women's football team has filed an appeal against the decision to dismiss their bid for equal pay. A judge last week in California rejected the players' claims they were underpaid compared to the U.S. men's side. The lawsuit was filed by 28 women's national team players last year against the U.S. Soccer Federation, and they had been seeking $66 million in damages under the Equal Pay Act. However, federal judge Gary Klosner allowed the players' case for unfair treatment in travel, housing and medical support to go to trial, which is set for the 16th of June in Los Angeles. The U.S. team won the Women's World Cup last summer for their 4th title overall, and they have also won 5 Olympic gold medals.
Better save. It's come off the... Oh, now the challenge on Morgan by Van der Gracht. The boot was high in the air. VAR check is going on. Very, very high indeed from Stephanie Van der Gracht. Penalty. It's Rapinoe against Van Veenendaal. It's 1-0. The USA 1, the Netherlands 0. Helped on by Mewis to Lavelle. The game's opening up. Rose Lavelle, lovely run, great goal!
Well, now elsewhere, Watford has followed Brighton and Hove Albion as well as Aston Villa in publicly opposing the use of neutral venues in the Premier League's proposed Project Restart plan. It is understood Premier League clubs are not planning to vote on whether to use neutral venues at a Monday meeting, but the vote looks likely to be held later in May. 14 of the 20 clubs must vote in favour for it to be adopted, though teams will be allowed to use 5 substitutes to help with fixture congestion.
Use 5 substitutes when the season resumes after a FIFA proposal was approved, but the decision on whether to implement the change is for each relevant competition organizer. There is also an option to stop using the video assistant referee system because of safety concerns over officials working together in a small room for the duration of matches. Most leagues around the world have been halted by the coronavirus pandemic. Germany's Bundesliga is due to resume next weekend, while the Premier League's Project Restart has a prospective resumption next month. The International Football Association Board, IFAB, football's rule-making body, has agreed to a temporary change to the laws of the game in order to protect player welfare. IFAB and FIFA will decide at a later stage whether to extend the ruling to the 2021 season. Meanwhile, Lionel Messi and his Barcelona teammates have returned to individual training. They have done so after La Liga started testing players for coronavirus this week as part of the protocols in place for training to resume and elite football in Spain to get going again behind closed doors in June. The protocols are part of a 4-phase process progressing from preparation for training, individual training, group training, and then collective training. Players have to be tested 2 days before they can start individual sessions, along with any coaching staff and club personnel who will be part of the training.
And also, Renault's Daniel Ricciardo expects the first race of the season to be chaotic after the long break enforced by the coronavirus crisis. The 30-year-old Australian believes the length of time since drivers were last in cars will lead to mistakes and incidents. F1 bosses are planning to start the season in Austria on the 3rd to 5th July, by which time it will be 4 months since drivers stepped out of their cars at the end of the pre-season testing. The 7-time Grand Prix winner believes the more experienced drivers might be at an advantage at the start of the season. Yeah. Well, now that story brings us to the end of Channel One Weekend Sports today. But just as a reminder of what's happened today, 28 new cases were reported today by the Ministry of Health. And of course, we had, unfortunately, one more person lost their life, meaning the death toll at the moment is at 30. Now, of course, at KBC Channel 1, we're going to be bringing you the updates on that and other matters. And remember, for more news, you can always log on to our website at www.kbc.co.ke. Well, thank you for joining us tonight for Channel 1 Weekend. Our sign language interpreter has been Lucy Maura. I'm Richard Munga. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.
My name is Reverend Eric Kanyungu Kingori, a pastor at Ridgeways Baptist Church, and I'm glad to bring to you today a brief devotion. I want to speak to us from Philippians chapter 4, verses 4 to 5. This is a scripture with a very small phrase in between. It says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I will say, rejoice. Let your gentle spirit be known to all men." Then it says, "The Lord is near." It's very interesting to me that between Philippians 4 and Philippians 6 is this very brief phrase that the Lord is near. Philippians 4 tells us to rejoice, and Philippians 6 tells us that we should not be anxious about anything but pray about everything. I believe the phrase "the Lord is near" brings all this together. The phrase "the Lord is near" tells us that because he is near we can rejoice, and because he is near we can pray. And so, using the word near, allow me to bring just 4 quick points, and then we can pray. The first one is from the letter N, that the Lord never leaves us nor forsakes us. In fact, Hebrews 13:5 talks about keeping our life free from the love of money, because God never leaves us, never will forsake us. It says never twice to just show how absolutely God will never forsake us. And I want to encourage us today that whatever you're going through, God never leaves us, God never forsakes us. But number 2, from the letter E, is our God is a God of empathy. Empathy, meaning that God, though great and mighty, puts himself in our shoes to understand what we are going through. You may think no one else hears you or understands, but that is what God promises us, that he empathizes with us. In Hebrews 4, he says that since we have a high priest who is able to empathize with our weaknesses, that he has been tempted in every way. So Jesus has gone through every trial imaginable so that he can empathize with us. But God is committed to be near to us, not only in never leaving us and in empathizing with us, but in being available to us. He says in the book of Psalms 139, verses 7 to 10, "Where can I go from your spirit?" So God is committed to be near to us in never leaving us. He's committed to being near to us in empathizing with us, but in being available to us. Wherever we are, in the dead of night, when you wake up early in the morning, God is available to you. But lastly, from the letter R, to spell our word near, is that our God is reliable. He says in Psalm 34, verses 4 to 7, "I sought the Lord, and he answered me. He delivered me from all my fears. Those who look to him are radiant. Their faces are never covered with shame. This poor man called, and the Lord heard him. He saved him out of all his troubles." So the Lord is promising to be near to us in this season with all that is going on in our nation. That he promises that because he is near, we can rejoice in the Lord and again rejoice. Because he is near, we can pray and not be anxious about anything. And therefore, may you be encouraged by this word. He'll never leave you nor forsake you. He empathizes with you. He's available to you. He's reliable to intervene in our situations. Let us pray. Father, I just want to pray for everyone that is listening. We ask that this message would be a ray of hope in their life. That wherever they are, whatever they are going through, God, you will not leave them, you will not forsake them. And that, Father, because you are near to them, they can pray to you and you will hearken to their prayers. Bless them now, encourage them now, for your name's sake. It is in Jesus' name we have prayed. Amen.
Vera Beauty College.
Vera Beauty and Fashion College, with branches in Nairobi, Eldoret, Thika and Meru. Did you know that we are a TVET approved institution? We offer courses in fashion design, interior design in soft furnishing, event decoration, flower arrangement, event planning, hairdressing, barbering and dreadlocks, beauty therapy, makeup, nail technology, spa massages, teaching skills, TOT, solo business management, and many more. Register now and visit our website on www.verabeautycollege.com. You can also call on 0725 923 550 Nairobi branch, 0728 087 689 Eldoret branch, 0722 22 7428 Thika branch, 0725 000 706 Meru branch. Vera Beauty and Fashion College, a TVET approved institution.
And now, let the weak say it, I am strong, oh yes. Let the poor say, I am rich, because of what?
People gonna say all kind of things about you. We them on.
Please let me go home. Please. Please, I'm not who you think I am. I'm really not who you think I am. Please, I'm not a spy.
You are a spy.
I'm not a spy. Please let me go home.
Try again.
I am not a spy. I am a businesswoman. I work for Ring Petroleum and Gas. Please call them. I work for Ring Petroleum.
You are here to sabotage our nuclear ambition. Yes?
계속 누르고 있어. I'm not a spy.
불어. 빨리. 빨리 해. 야. 야. Try again.
I am not a spy.
You
I am not
are a spy. Don't lie to me. 여기서 죽고 싶어. 지랄하고 있네. 거짓말 하지 말라고 했잖아.
I am not a spy. I am not a spy.
It is through the grace and beneficence of our glorious
문 열라.
that the Democratic People's Republic of Korea has pardoned the American imperialists for her hostile acts against our social state.
Keep your head down. Don't say anything till we make the swap. In case Kim Jong-il here changed his mind.
Exchange.
I don't understand.
You don't understand what?
All the rules say to leave me, that one life is not worth blowing operational cover.
You got that right. If we have to lose someone for the greater good, we will.
So why did you do it?
Well, I didn't do it. He did. Once he found out where you were, there was no stopping him. He petitioned the Senate, State Department. We didn't need the publicity, so I figured we better do something or he's gonna invade this goddamn rice paddy republic himself. You okay?